we hack our own biology, our own body. So it can be very objective, like there's a way to measure, just like in IT and software development, that you can track metrics, you can track development, and there's a lot of information that you can hack. But on this session, we're not going to talk about the very objective, but instead we're going to talk about the subjective one, like what feelings, symptoms, and things that we can, like the signals that we can get from our body to understand if we're like on a high dopamine feeling, or if you're like having excess serotonin or like low serotonin. So you can use this subjective feelings to shape your well-being, your life, and the people around you. So yeah, we can move some more slides. I can check mine also here. So we can skip the heavy medical neuroscience because I'm not expert. So I just know what I learned from subjective experience, mostly with IT mindset, of like a scientist mindset, trying to figure out stuff with based on information and data. So we can skip that by all definitions of what is a neurotransmitter, how they communicate and all this, and then we can just go to like the easy part of like what happens, so like what the influence. And the answer
Marcus?
is that, yes.
Which slide should I be on?
It can be, yeah, it can be this one, that's fine. I'll just jump out to the neurotransmitters and then you have a better sync on it. All right. So we just go for the easy path, and we just assume that neurotransmitters regulate everything that you do. Feelings, eating behaviors, sleeping behaviors, stimulatory behaviors, everything. So we just assume that. And then the four ones, there are like many others. The four ones that we're going to talk about is, they are like serotonin, dopamine, GABA, and acetylcholine. Does anyone know about acetylcholine? Have you heard before? GABA? No. Okay, cool. Dopamine and serotonin. Yeah, these are kind of famous. Yeah. But GABA and acetylcholine, they're like also very important. And that's the more like the learning and the focus part, which is more connected to the biohacking. People are usually more like they want to become superhumans and they want to learn faster. They want to become like memorize everything, you know? So it's more like acetylcholine, which is not very famous. Okay, so you can move to the next slide to neurotransmitters. You can just skip this one also. And then on this session, we're going to talk about low levels of each one. High levels when you're like out of balance, supplements, herbs, nootropics, prescription pills, habits or whatever that you can do to balance this based on your subjective experience. If you're feeling like cold hands, if you have sweaty hands, if you're having panic disorder, like anxiety, all that, these are all subjective experience that you can use as an anchor to say that, oh, maybe I'm having low GABA or like low dopamine now. Maybe I could eat something that could trigger GABA a bit more. So we can find a balance through supplements, nootropics, food, or habits, whatever. Okay, we can skip the slides also, these ones. And maybe can jump straight to the first one, which is the dopamine. So dopamine is how we feel pleasure and our sense of achievement, like the motivation. It's like what motivates us. So we can start with the low. If you go to the low symptoms of dopamine, we can share the slides later, so you can use as a reference to track, because there's a lot of like 25 symptoms for each of like low levels and high levels. So you can just like try to relate to it now to understand like, oh, this is like a low level, but it might be a bit overwhelming with a lot of. So the idea is to share the slides. So you can use as a, like a hook that you can go there and see, oh, this is like low GABA, like a reference point. So dopamine is usually associated with motivation and is considered our achievement molecule. And a low level of dopamine, it's you feel like your self-worth of your self-esteem is low, like you don't feel like you're prepared. This is like possibly one of the biggest trigger or like the effects of low dopamine. Dopamine is like the exciting part. When you're like excited, you have energy to do things. Low dopamine, you feel like low self-worth, and you have lack of motivation. You don't want to start things. You can't finish things. So the idea here is just like to raise a bit of awareness that finding balance is a constant job, that you need to be monitoring yourself quite often, and just not like, oh, I'm like that. I don't have the motivation. This is just the phase of your life that you're probably not eating food that contains dopamine. So you're not taking the right amount. So that's why you're out of balance. Feeling of hopelessness. We can move to the next one. Yeah, you can move to the next one also. Two more slides. And if you're like losing your temper easily, if you are having difficulty managing stress, these are all signs of low dopamine. And toward tendency towards isolation, apathy. So these are all symptoms. And please just use this as a reference and try to reflect that, am I like that sometimes? Am I not? Like sometimes does this happen to me? So you can just use as a reference like, oh, this is like low dopamine. Weight gain. So if you have like your stimulated part on like in lower levels, you tend to gain weight because you're not like motivated to do stuff. You just want to be in bed, you know, like. And I can tell about my personal opinion about our personal history about that. Dopamine is also related to being shy and introvert, not able to speak up. And as a computer guy, IT guy, very nerdy, I had to face that a lot, and I went through a lot of problems to overcome my possibility to speak up in front of people, which is that was like low dopamine maybe when I was young. And today I feel like it's improving, and I'm finding the balance to this. And if you need to take too much caffeine, or like addictions to like cigarettes or like drinking too much, also means that you're like running low on dopamine. Having trouble to get out of bed in the morning. So if you're like, oh, it's especially in wintertime, it's like, oh, you know, like I feel like, oh, I'm so drained of work, social anxiety. That's also low dopamine. So you can feel like, yeah, like maybe I could eat something or like take some supplements that could just raise a bit and feel more motivated. And tomorrow morning, I'm just going to chase it, you know. Maintaining weight, yeah, if you have cravings, this can be all preventable. Like, oh, I have sugar cravings, like the majority of the population, they do. So it's just a low dopamine levels. So you can kind of easily fix that. You don't need to be like, oh, I'm so compulsive, you know, like this self-negative talk. You can prevent that by just having the right amount. History of alcohol, cigarettes, and others. So this is effects of low dopamine. So it's like low motivation, low energy, pretty much. On the other hand, the high dopamine, which after I start becoming a bit more like comfortable on speaking for myself and regulating the low dopamine, I figured out that maybe I'm having too much high dopamine now. It's like you regulate to the other end, you know. And the high dopamine feelings, or like the subjective triggers that you can figure out for yourself, it's paranoia. You can feel like, oh, there's some, you know, like too stimulated, excited, you know, some mania, like biting nails, you know, this kind of behavior. This is like too much dopamine. You're like too much stimulated. Even insanity. This is probably like the high end, but it's you can get some feelings of like, gosh, sometimes I feel like so maniac, you know, to do something. And it can be also for pleasure seeking, especially like men into masturbation and sexuality. You know, I just want to chase women as much as I can. You know, that's high dopamine. So you can see probably what you're eating, and it's influencing in this kind of behavior. And we can go when go to the nootropics part. We can talk about the stimulants, which and it's a high dopamine. It triggers high dopamine also, and that's how I got started into nootropics. To code, to take like HDG medicaments like Adderall, like it was super trendy in Silicon Valley, and like you can just take Adderall or take like Ritalin or like Vyvanse and just code for like 12 hours straight, super focused, That's how I got into. And this also feeling of high dopamine is like hyper-focus and thinking that the rest of the world is in slow motion. Like, oh, people are so slow, like I can handle, this is high dopamine. I used to feel a lot like that. Yeah. And high dopamine is also like very stimulatory. So it's like anxiety. You feel like, oh, I can't do this now. I'm like too much energy. I'm like shaking, hyperactivity, stress, and organization of thoughts. So it doesn't seem that bad to have like organization of thoughts. But so that's the point, right? Like it's you can find balance, and sometimes you can have a bit more high dopamine if you're like in a work mode, concentrated, that you want to have like organization thoughts to write some script or something. You can be a bit high. So finding balance through neurotransmitters is very subjective. Like, what is a high level for you? What's your anxiety level that you can tolerate to do something? Because sometimes it's good to be a little bit stressed to have the energy to keep moving, So that's why it's very subjective. And then we have a list here. Probably won't make too much sense for people here, but I can talk a bit. Let's see which slide's that. Yeah, so it's the right slide. So dopamine raising supplements. So supplements here is kind of a very broad word because they can be, it can be like vitamins. There's a list of vitamins and a list of herbs, prescription pills, habits, hormones. This can be also you can ingest like by finding food. Some of them you cannot find in food, so you need to supplement. And we have a topic on the late on the slides to where to find and if they're legal or not, if they're safe or not. So there's one here that's worth mentioning, or like two. It's called Rhodiola rosea. It's like an Indian herb that it's called, it's part of the adaptogen family, which is very, you can mix with smoothies and shakes and just take the powder, and it improves your life considerably. And the dopamine, like it brings balance, it brings you, like enhance your skill to adapt to the environment, even for like cold. Yeah. And the other one is guarana. It's a Brazilian fruit. It's a bit stimulant, so if you're in a race, you can drink guarana tea. Guarana is very famous Brazilian drink. And then of course we have the HDG medicaments like Adderall. Anyone heard about Adderall before? There's like Ritalin, Vyvanse, and they're like they're prescription pills, pretty much like amphetamines molecules that makes you hyper-focused, stimulated energy. So very addictive also. But if you want to have your moments of tunnel vision, that's the thing. Yeah, modafinil. Anyone heard about modafinil? Modafinil is the limitless pill. You know about the Limitless movie? That's the closest option of reality from the NZT drug that they have in the movie. That's modafinil. It puts you in a very hyper-focus mode, very stimulated and fast thinking, organization of thoughts, motivated. You just don't overthink, or should I do that or shouldn't, and just done. Raise the dopamine level. So yeah, this on the list of, yeah, there's downside, which is very addictive. So you feel like you're dependent to that. You probably need to take that tomorrow again. All or like most of dopamine supplements, it's they are very addictive, and it might not tolerate too much feelings. You don't care about people emotions. Like you're like complaining too much. You know, if you have like a girlfriend, you don't want to be with the girlfriend. You know, you just want to work and do your stuff. You're not connected. It's more like a logical drug. You're like do the job, and but then side effect is you kind of lose a bit of the feeling of like the connection. You know, like people are so slow and fuck it, I just want to fix this and like don't bother me. You know, like it's self-isolation. It triggers, it enhances the, there is abuse tolerance. Dopamine, just like sugar also enhances dopamine, right? Like gives you the sense of pleasure and achievement. So the abuse tolerance, you need to take more after that. So dopamine is probably one of the ones that you can get most effect and feel most, but it's very addictive, so you need to be very aware. Yes, the receptors. Yeah, they build tolerance. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I can repeat the question there. Also, yeah, 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 yeah. So, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so dopamine is the one that you can abuse more. Like it's usually the one that people are like joining the smart drugs movement to feel excited and motivated and full of energy, you know. So that's the entry point mostly. Of course, we have like a tolerance part in the end of the session and some concerns around all neurotransmitters and all supplements. But you need to be smart enough to find your balance in a subjective experience. So you need to figure out that if you're taking too much stimulant, you're probably lacking something also. So it's about like self-reflecting a lot. All right, perfect. So the habits that can raise your dopamine: sunlight exposure, red light in the morning, face the sun in the morning, that can trigger a lot of dopamine, and vitamin D, and discipline, like make your bed in the morning, you know, start with the first winning act and build some like achievement around yourself. And it could be something small, like clean the kitchen, you know, like this builds dopamine, like you got the sense of achievement. If you keep cleaning it kind of becomes small, you know. Just don't do it like once per month. Cold showers, very good. Yeah, cold showers, very stimulatory. Yeah, cool. Okay, serotonin. Serotonin is related to emotion and mood. So if you're like in a very good mood, that's triggered by serotonin. If you're like very happy, happiness neurotransmitter. So yeah, the low serotonin is usually related to depression and social anxiety. And serotonin is also heavily involved with our perception of reality. How cool is that? You know, you can hack the perception of reality because it's just the way you frame things. Pretty much, you have your own observer point of view. So if you can hack and change your perception, that's easily done through serotonin. So psychedelic drugs, they are most of them, they are binding to serotonin. So they are hacking, like changing your perception, building hallucinations or whatever to the serotonin neurotransmitter. So if you're feeling super happy when you take some MDMA or some mushrooms, and you feel like pure joy, you know, like crying tears, you know, of like happiness, that's high serotonin, which can be on daily life can be a bit overwhelming and bit considered as like craziness, like you're a bit too much, you know, like it's too high, you know. Okay, maybe let me check with slides. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we can go to the low symptoms of serotonin and the high symptoms and what to take and what to do. Feeling of unhappiness, dissatisfaction, apathy, frustration, or anger. So if you're like this kind of person that are angry of everybody and always unsatisfied, this can be easily changed by taking serotonin. of course, it needs to be surrounded by the right environment, the right habits, the right food, and everything. It's not just like take this special pill and it will fix your levels. But it's a good starting point. And the idea of the session is to raise awareness that you don't need to be a guru or science to understand that you can hack your biology and bring balance to your life in just by what you're taking and the habits you're following. So it's you have control over your own biology. That's a biohacking philosophy. Depression, loss of pleasure towards things you once enjoyed. So if you're like, oh, I'm not feeling that hunt anymore of things that I used to do, and like it doesn't get me the same reward, you know. Difficulty staying positive or feeling joy. This can be permanent. Some people that are just like, you know, live in depression, that could be helping with that. But it can be temporary, like you're just feeling some sadness. You can just accept the sadness and think that, okay, this is like low serotonin. Maybe I can allow this low serotonin for a brief moment and figure out to eat something else or take a supplement that would fix that. So it brings the control back to you to handle your situation. You know, it's not like, oh, I'm like that. No, it's just like, oh, yeah, you're feeling sad. Okay, I can just accept the sadness for a brief moment. Then, okay, now I need to, you know, it's Monday morning again. Let's do some stuff. No more sadness. All right. So, yeah, still on low serotonin, low mood and cloudy days, less socializing. You just want to be at home, isolated. That's also low serotonin. You're not enjoying relationships anymore. You like social anxiety. It's hard to fall asleep and to feel well rested, so you don't really recover properly when you have low serotonin. And waking up frequently at night, not having a proper resting heart rate at night. Another key point, eating despite not feeling hungry. Serotonin also regulates your appetite. So if you're like just compulsively eating, that's low serotonin. You can just balance that and manage, like control your hungerness. If you feel that you used to be more adventurous, like I'm losing the appetite for life, that's low serotonin. It can be, I wouldn't say easily fixed, but you can bring the awareness to this and try to find your balance through a set of habits or nootropics. So if you answer yes for any of the following sentences, you probably have some low levels of serotonin. Difficulty to make decisions, take a long time to make a move when faced with different choices, caught in a loop of negativity, conflicts, dealing with conflicts in times of crisis. If small problems become big problems, like overthinking. If you have suicide thoughts. And you feel like you're just surviving but not thriving. So that's, I used to have this a lot. Like I want to do something awesome, you know, like I want to be an amazing human to the world and help community and bring some joy, you know. And sometimes I feel like this day or everyday life is so boring and I don't have much to do and I don't feel like I'm really following my purpose mission, you know? So that's low serotonin. You can take some supplements and feel like, yeah, let's, question? Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can repeat. I'll try to capture. Hmm? Yeah, if you can run out of your own storage, I think of serotonin. So I think that your body produces serotonin normally by your framing reality in your own experiences and by what you take. So I don't think you can run out, or like at maybe temporarily, but not the whole thing, or like a short amount that you can feel like you're low, but it's there. You know, there's like 100 billion neurons. They are communicating all the time, so you just don't run out. You just go to like lower levels, and because you're constantly eating, ingesting, having perceptions that are triggering this, right? So it doesn't deplete completely. Of course, when you take some MDMA, it can kind of deplete a lot, and that you feel like very down, and you need to recover, take some time. That's why 5-HTP or some other supplements are good for taking after you take some MDMA when you go to raise or something. So there's like a Ray formula after pack that you can take it. But that links well to the high serotonin symptoms, which is dilated pupils. You have big pupils. So when you take MDMA or some other drugs, it's like cat mode, you know, like super aware. Muscle rigidity. So if you're like, oof, need some relaxing, you know, that's high serotonin. Rapid heart rate. So these are all effects of MDMA or ecstasy or these are rapid heart rate. Yeah, like yeah. Agitation. Yeah.
Can you get any problems due to high blood pressure in the brain?
If you can get any heart problems to your
brain problems because of high blood pressure in the brain.
Well, I would say so. I'm really not the most expert on how exactly the brain works, like in the chemistry and the neural pathways and all that. But I would say so.
Does the blood pressure go up? How much?
It depends on what you're taking, because it can be a bit that you're putting high. Like it can be MDMA, which is like very stimulant and can get a lot, so it can be risky at some point. I haven't heard of problems by blood pressure in your brain because of taking that. So I would say that it's like there's still a risk, but something that you can kind of live with it. It's not, if you have like a healthy habits and you're like hydrated. So I would say that's okay. But the problems that I heard most of with serotonin and dopamine is dehydration that can cause more harm than the blood pressure. But to be honest, I'm really not an expert to say that. Yeah. Serotonin syndrome. Mm. Yeah.
And I'm not
mm. Yeah. It can, like, usually schizophrenia, it's linked to high levels. So yeah, too stimulated. But yeah, I'm not expert, so don't take this as a full answer and take it as a medical advice. But yeah, good point. All right, so maybe need to speed it up a bit. Yeah. So we have a list here of. We can maybe check the slides here. We can move the slides a bit further to even high serotonin can get like vomiting and diarrhea. And so the increase in supplements is there's a variation of vitamin B, niacin, which is very common to find everywhere. It's present on food also. So 5-HTP, tryptophan, like dark chocolate. Dark chocolate to raise your serotonin levels. But to finding food is not the same as supplementing, because you can get the compound specifically and just it's more efficient. So in food, you probably need to eat a lot of that. So it's good to have a balanced diet, to have this by default, what you're eating. But if you really want to kind of find a balance, you need to kind of test with like supplements or herbs. Most common for serotonin, I would say it's 5-HTP, perfectly for women. Regulate mood, hungerness, sleep patterns. So it's usually recommended for women. 5-HTP, yeah, very famous. Magnesium can help. Melatonin, like the sleep. Vitamin B6, and it can also be increased by meditation. You can feel happy by meditating. You can have good habits, and you can have like some slow moments and praying that induce high serotonin. Okay, I maybe need to speed it up a bit because there's like 2 more to cover, and a few questions about like the safety and legality. Yeah. Question. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So acetylcholine, like this seems to be like a new one for most of the people here. This is like an essential nutrient, and your body does not produce it. So you need to ingest from something externally. You're not producing automatically, and it plays a role in the essential cognitive process, such as attention, memory, learning. So if you want to have a better memory, if you want to focus better and have some tunnel vision, it's acetylcholine, and it's usually on the center of every nootropic stack, every nootropic formula. If you go to like Life Story and you want something to enhance your brain, it's probably choline in the center there. And you can usually find on the eggs. Eggs are the better source, like the best source of choline. Liver, beef, salmon, cauliflower. So it's you can find in food easily. So let's see which slide are we in. So we can move to the next slide. And it helps with memory recall. And low levels of acetylcholine is like poor memory, loss of visual and verbal memory. Poor creativity. So this is not the way you are. It's just not like, oh, I'm not creative. No, this is just low acetylcholine that you can just fix it. Poor word recall and loss of comprehension. It might be that at this moment, you're just feeling that you have low choline because what you've been eating for the last few weeks. So it's not just, oh, I'm just not smart enough, or, you know, it's just low level, but can be easily fixed by taking some supplements and enhance your cognition. Difficulty recognizing people and placing faces. So that's not like, oh, I was born like that. No, it's regulated by this neurotransmitter. Difficulty in navigating. So if you have like a poor sense of location and like, oh, I'm not sure exactly what I am, that's regulated by choline. Yeah, poor spatial orientation, tendency to bump into things. Like, yeah, forgetting your car keys. Like, where's the car key? Or like, just put like, I need to pack a backpack, you know, and then you start packing things and like, what's a backpack? You know, like, I need to leave. Like, yeah, and it was like, yeah, on top of the table there. So it's low acetylcholine.
It's good to know that, like, I wasn't born like this.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's also linked with worse memory, forget important things, and if you have taken supplements or not. So like, oh, did I just lock the car, or like, did I took that, or like, should I just do it again? Should I go back and check? You know, acetylcholine. If people say that you have an absent mind, of like, oh, you're distracted, and these are all triggers that can, yeah, like signal to you that, oh, this, like, I'm having a low choline moment now. Poor management skills, and your brain no longer works as it used to be. So supplements to increase acetylcholine. Probably the most famous one is fish oil. It will improve your memory. So if you want to have like remember things that I just open the fridge and you check like quickly that, oh, there's some food there, and then you go to the store and say, oh, do I still have eggs in the fridge? If you have acetylcholine in the right levels and you eat in eggs and fish oil, you probably say, it's there. Like, I know it's there. You know, like, it was like a brief moment, a brief picture, but you know the feeling that, yeah, I can ensure like it triggers this kind of skill. Another one pretty cool that I like is another herb, bacopa. So there's a long list here that we can just go through and check individually. But bacopa monnieri is also Indian herb. So it boosts your memory and your brain skills permanently. So 120 capsules, one every day for months. It helps a lot. So it's completely natural herb, no side effects. You can even mix with like smoothies if you don't mind the taste of like horse shit, because it's really bad. So its capsules good, you know. Yeah, and there's another one that I kind of like also, Persian A. It's a Chinese herb, like a powder that you can just mix. It's very, very subtle, so it's very little, very dense. That makes your learning stick. Like when you're learning something, it sticks faster. Like you don't feel like, oh, now I got, like I don't even remember. Too high acetylcholine also operates by inhibiting other neurotransmitters. So there's no such thing like I'm super memory enhanced now. You know, there's no like I'm super like I'm learning super fast. You know, it's like there's no like subjective feeling of like too high and acetylcholine. Okay, perfect. So we have we're probably going to extend 15 minutes from the expected, but yeah. So GABA. So we have dopamine, which is the stimulatory one, and you have GABA. So GABA, if you want to usually take at night because you want to rest at night, it's for calming the nervous system. So if you're like feeling too anxious or you took too much coffee during the day and you want to optimize your health for relaxing and recovery, it's GABA. Everything that's trigger GABA, it's for relaxing. So if you have low levels of GABA, pretty much you have the high dopamine. So they're kind of invert. And like heart palpitations, you have like too much energy, and muscle tensions and sweaty palms, that's low GABA. And cold hands and feet, excessive worry, easily scared, headaches, obsessive compulsive traits. So if you're like, oh, I just, it's not like late night and I need to go to the fridge and just eat whatever is there, that's low GABA. You should be like relaxed and enjoying your life and being grateful at night and just like, oh yeah, I feel so great to be in like a calming mood to prepare for the next day. So yeah, stress, panic, anxiety, racing, restless thoughts, difficult turning off thoughts when you're trying to relax. So if you're not able to relax at night, that's because you have low GABA. What else? Worrying about scenarios that are unlikely to occur. So like overthinking at night, like, oh, tomorrow going to be too problematic, I'm not prepared, you know, that's low level GABA. Uneasy, on edge, becoming easily tired, losing your train of thought, panic attacks, overwhelming feelings. So I'm feeling like, oh, there's too much happening in my life. You know, I'm not able to relax and chill. Like I'll be tired, feelings start to get burned out. It's because are either like too stimulated or like too demanding. You need to take the right proper care to relax, especially at night. Yeah, feeling stiffness or soreness despite lack of exercise. Starving for air, like I can't breathe, you know, I feel like some note here can express some levels of GABA. High levels of GABA are related to a complete lack of fear. So you're like too relaxed. You're like, I'm present and I know everything and I, you know, the master of everything, but it's too relaxing. So you lack the motivation to do stuff. You're just like, relax and I can't do much, you know. So there's no such thing of like too high GABA, you know. It's you probably going to sleep because you're just like probably like a stage before sleeping. It's some kind of GABA. Yeah, supplements to increase GABA. So there's some herbs, vitamins. Some worth mentioning here is melatonin. So sleep hormone, you can take that before sleeping, or like some hours before sleep, so you can induce the feeling. You can take magnesium. Magnesium is very relaxing part. It relaxes your body. So It's part of like 300 processes in your body, so you can just easy your mind. Inositol, also very good. Glycine, it lowers your body temperature at night, so it makes you like prepare for sleeping. What else? There's one here which is
Did you
phenibut.
say glycine?
Glycine, yeah, glycine amino acid. And magnesium, inositol, some herbs and German words. And there's also GABA. GABA, you can take GABA also, which is just a supplement that you buy like in Life Store, which is the one-to-one to the neurotransmitter. So perfect, you just can take that at night. I usually do. There's another one called phenibut. Phenibut is chemical nootropic made by Russians to really recover for astronauts. So astronauts, they take phenibut since the 80s or 90s to relax. So it's very intense to relax, and you feel like a very nice sense of well-being at night, like, oh, yeah, life's perfect, you know, like it's happening. But it can cause addiction. So usually the good ones cause addiction. Just so you know. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. So this is it for the neurotransmitters, the main ones. The idea here is just to show that you can have these subjective feelings and understand that you can hack your life just by understanding the feelings, the signalings, you know, and you can control that using like by food, supplements, herbs, make a tea. So there's many ways to ingest to regulate your body. So it's part of like your self-healing process that you can just enjoy life. I'm gonna make some tea here and gonna make some food there, and then kind of finding a balance. But you just need to understand what's the compounds of each. Right? Question?
I have a question, and I have to step out because I'm hosting,
Okay.
hosting another session, another camp in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So the session you did here, Janne, here, but in another camp, and now what you're talking about, sort of the development of personal consciousness, those stages, I would guess that changes your chemistry based on what you're saying here.
Yeah.
And my question is, do you know if there are any studies like connected to what Keegan is doing? Like if you see people in various stages, if they've also done like chemical analysis of those people in various stages to see if it sort of matches up.
I mean, it's interesting because there are very simple experiments. We know that the story we have will affect our chemistry. And if you get another story, either just through meditation and you let go of old stories, or if you tell a person that, you know, that they're going out on stage and something fun will happen, it will be different reaction versus if they will go on stage and they know they're going to eat something disgusting, you know? And so it's the same stress, but it will be different chemicals released based on what story on their expectation. And yes, I guess that the whole sense making, I have not heard if there are studies about it, but I think it would shift, yes.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. So the last part is just some questions around the questions around nootropics and the supplements, if they're legal, if they're safe. So just some thoughts around that. So we can, they are called the classifications like nootropics. So they are like supplements or like substances that can enhance memory and learning. Also neuroprotective, can protect your brain against like aging and all that, and increase metabolism in the brain, and they're usually free from side effects. So just some quick questions here. There are like different types. The one that you probably know about is the racetam family. This was like created by Russians in the 70s, and they are the father of nootropics that protects your brain, something that you can take every day kind of. And there's like a lot of studies since the 70s on that. So this is like if you want to start taking some nootropics or smart drugs, this is probably the entry point. So it's good to remember there's a racetam family, piracetam, phenylpiracetam, and many others. So it's just a classification, good to get started. And are they legal? Most of it, yeah, they're legal. It depends on where you live. There's like different regulations. So let's say we cannot find melatonin here on the store, but if you go to Finland, you can get it in the pharmacy. Paracetam, which is like the father of nootropics, you need a prescription here. These are more like intense nootropics. But if you go to Czech Republic, you can find it there. If you go to Germany, they probably sell some supplements on the pharmacy or like this kind of natural food store. They sell it there. So you kind of need to be aware or where to get. But for most of it, they're legal. Of course, the prescription-based ones, they are, you need to get a prescription, right? You need to talk to a doctor, and they have a bit more significant effects, so it's a bit more carefully. And of course, there are some illegal ones. Like if you want to consider LSD as a nootropic, if enhance your serotonin, enhance your mood, you want to microdose, you can probably do that. You can probably get some effects, but they're not legal. So, but most of them like that you can take like daily, they're legal. Are they safe? It's very important for the biohacking community to not harm yourself. It's so safety is very a big topic and very concerned. So most of them, they're like very risk-free and no side effects. Of course, like everything, there's like side effects. There's like food. If you eat too much chocolate, you might feel a bit of like high serotonin and a bit depressed later. Like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. You know? So like everything, there's like a downside. So in the biohacking community, they try to, or like we're trying to find a lot of evidence base. So making decisions based on really information, not just some subjective experience like I took this and I feel great, but like what about the long term? What's happening if you're taking like for 20 years? You know. So there's a lot of evidence base on the community. And quick tips to avoid edge cases. It's like not all substances equal to the other one. They're all independent and different. So you need to understand each one by each one. If you're taking something to like 5-HTP that raise your serotonin, you need to understand that this is like a unique molecule, a unique element that has different effects. So usually a good point is start low. Don't overdo it. You know, take half pill. Like start low. You know, like be cautious. Yeah, like understand exactly. And tolerance and addiction potential. So some of them, they are usually linked to dopamine. They're like very addictive. You can get addicted, and you can experience withdrawal. So not all of them, it's just a few, I would say. So if you want to face that once, you got the quick benefit, you need to understand that it might be a tolerance, and you need to, you know, cycle, like take a 1 week or take every 3 days, so we don't really build a tolerance. But as a general, nootropics are not usually addiction forming. So that's good. And I just want to finish with a story about Icarus. Does anyone know about Icarus from the Greek mythology? Icarus was locked with his dad in a tower in the Greek island. And because of some problems or like crimes, I'm not exactly aware of why he was there. But his dad was like a super smart guy, Daedalus, and he created a wax or like a wings made of wax to give the possibility for his son to fly away. And then he said to his son, just don't fly away too close to the sun because the wax, it might melt. And don't go too close to the water because it might also break apart. And so Icarus, on his overambitious feeling of like, I want to be like close to God, I want to be close to the sky and reach the unlimited, you know, like the limitless. He went too close to the sun, and the wax melted, and then he just dropped in the water and died. So this tells about like the overambition, which is very common on the biohacking community. I want to become superhuman. I want to become super fast and learn faster. And so follow the advice of Daedalus, Icarus' father, to don't go too close to the sun, and trying to find your balance, trying to find your way of living life without being too demanding too much, you know, asking for too much, and find your way through life. That was it.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you.